Welcome everyone. In this video, we will address the topic of VPNs. The VPN section is one of the most popular on NetServer because of the features it offers and for the great ease of use. The main features of VPNs are the following. The first one is the ability to access a remote network and operate exactly as if you were there. Another key feature is security related. All traffic in the VPN tunnel can't be seen from the outside thanks to encryption. Bear in mind that by default, VPNs offer access to the whole LAN, so when possible, try to limit traffic to what is strictly necessary by creating firewall rules. The NetServer VPN section has been designed to be very simple and quick to configure and use, but without compromising its functionalities. For this reason, in several cases, you will find interfaces with a basic view and an advanced view. In a basic view, only the most common options will be shown, whereas in the advanced view, you'll be allowed to edit more specific parameters to fit your needs. The web UI will also suggest precompiled fields based on your current system configuration, for example, network, host names, and so on, in order to speed up the process and avoiding mistakes. The result is that in just a few seconds, you'll have a working VPN tunnel made from scratch. Now we are going to start with Road Warrior VPN, used to connect a single host to a remote network. A Road Warrior VPN can be created using different protocols. We decided to go for OpenVPN for the following reasons. The first one is security related. OpenVPN is as safe as IPsec, so this choice doesn't limit security. OpenVPN is supported by almost every client and it is free to download and use. Last but not least, OpenVPN is very easy to use. NetServer can automatically generate a configuration file and you just need to copy it in your client to make it work. Now let's see how it works. Basically, OpenVPN is a service listening on port 1194 UDP for clients to connect. A client talks to the server, it authenticates, and then it will receive an IP address and other options. On NetServer, you just need to enable the Road Warrior server with a minimum set of parameters. After that, your NetServer will enable the OpenVPN Road Warrior service and it will start listening on port 1194, which is the default OpenVPN port. And it will open the same port on all RED interfaces. But what about clients? All clients will contact the server on port 1194 UDP and will establish a connection. Client configuration is deliberately minimal and all options are pushed by the server. For example, if you need to add another route or change other parameters, you can do this just working on the server, leaving the client configuration as it is. Now we need to talk about VPN mode, which can be routed or bridged. Let's take a look at the main differences. When the service is enabled, an additional interface is added to those already configured on NetServer. The VPN traffic will flow through this special interface, which can be of two different types. The first type is tune, and it is used in rooted mode. The rooted mode works at level 3 of the OSI stack. So OpenVPN uses its own private, dedicated, non-overlapping network. The second type of interface is tap, and it is used in bridged mode. The bridged mode works at level 2 of the OSI stack. The physical interface and the OpenVPN interface will be bridged and they will share the same subnet. But what are the main differences between rooted and bridged mode in real life? In rooted mode, which is the preferred one, all VPN clients receive an IP address from a subnet different from the green network. This means that the subnets are not overlapping. For this reason, it is very easy to identify VPN traffic. Routing is very simple and we don't need to make changes to our green network. Another important reason is that a routed VPN is supported by all devices. Let's have a look at how routing works when we use a routed VPN. NetServer creates a specific interface called TuneRW. We need to specify the subnet in the root warrior configuration. Only private network can be chosen, and they need to be different from all other networks managed by NetServer. In this slide, we have displayed the routing diagram. So the client connects to NetServer and receives an IP address. Here is the 10.9.9.6. It can talk directly with the interface TuneRW as they are in the same network. If the client needs to talk to host 192.168.1.50, the client will send its traffic to TuneRW interface, passing it to IP address 10.9.9.1. Requests are managed by NetServer, which send them to its green interface. Now traffic is sent from NetServer to the host exiting interface EMP1S0. Requests will reach the host, and since they come from another network, the host will send replies to its default gateway, which is NetServer. NetServer can route replies back to the VPN client. How can I configure a Road Warrior VPN? The Road Warrior server setup is straightforward. You just need to click Edit, and the system will open a box with few parameters, which are Authentication mode, VPN mode, VPN network, and the public IP host names. These are the only fields you need to specify in order to configure your VPN server. All other parameters are filled in automatically. About the authentication, there are 4 types of authentications available. The first and most common is certificate, a personal certificate for each user. This is very easy to use and doesn't require to create a system user. You just need to download the configuration file that also contains all necessary certificate, and you are all set. Every user is authenticated and identified by its configuration file. Other methods are username and password. This is very useful if you already have a user's database. For example, the server can join a Microsoft Active Directory domain and authenticate users that are in your domain. Username, password, and certificate. This is like the one above, but safer, because every user also needs to have its own private certificate in order to authenticate itself. And the last one is username, OTP, and certificate, which is the safest. This is quite similar to user password and certificate, but you need to input a random number instead of your password. It requires a specific app in your smartphone or tablet, which generates a new numeric PIN to be used only once. Every authentication mode, except for certificate only, requires to install an account provider to manage system users. The account provider can be of two different types that are LDAP or Samba. The account provider can be local or remote. The public IP host name is another very important field. NetServer automatically identifies the public IPs of each connectivity and suggests them in this box. You can use both IP addresses or FQDN host names. OpenVPN Road Warrior natively supports connection backup. What happens is that the client tries to connect to the first IP address. If the first IP address is unavailable, the client will try to contact the second one and so on. For this reason, the IP addresses order is very important. It's good to know that these IPs will be put in the client configuration exactly in the same order you see in the box. There are also some advanced options you may need to know, so let's take a look at them. Advanced options are not strictly necessary, but they can be used to better fulfill your needs with many options about security, routing, DHCP, and so on. For example, the default topology is subnet, and it allows to assign every IP address of the network without any limitation, except for the first one, which is always assigned to the firewall. A net30 topology is also selectable, and it is present only for compatibility with all clients, but typically it shouldn't be needed in any case. Now we will see how to create an account. This is very easy. Just click the Add Account button, specify the username you want to use, and the account will be created. The account can be of two different types, depending on the selected authentication mode. So if the account is certificate, if the authentication is certificate, we don't need to use a system user. So a VPN only type account is enough. But if the account is based on user and password, it will be mandatory to select the system user from those present in the list. All the accounts will be shown in the Road Warrior panel. Clicking the three dots on the right will allow you to download the specific client configuration file. The client configuration file contains all needed information to establish a connection, like public IP addresses and all the certificates needed. Just download it and put it in the right folder to make everything work. Client configuration is intentionally very simple, so that if we need to change some parameters in the connection, like adding routes or passing a different DNS, we can do it only in the server section. Every configuration will be pushed to the client next time it connects. When a connection is active, you can see its main data, simply passing the mouse over the word connected. For each account, a history section is provided, and connection history of all users can be exported. If you prefer, you can send the file directly by email, clicking on the specific button and making the deployment process easier. In this case, if you are using the email method to send a client configuration file, your email could go to the spam folder. To avoid this, you can specify an appropriate smart host for the net server in System Settings section. There are also some things you need to know about the account behavior. The accounts cannot be shared among different users. We made this choice for security reasons and to properly identify each user. So if we have two users sharing the same configuration file and they log in with the same account, this is what will happen. If user 1 is already connected and user 2 try to connect with same configuration file, user 2 will be connected and user 1 will be disconnected. If a user wants to have many devices connected at the same time, he needs to have a VPN account for each device. However, there is no problem if a user installs the same account file in different devices and use them one at a time. Another thing you need to know is that VPN users can reach all hosts in the green zone by default. If you want to limit access, simply create a rule in the firewall section. For this reason, every account can be binded to a specific IP address. So this way we can have IP reservations, allowing us to create easily different firewall rules for each user. Now we will talk about the bridged mode. In bridged mode, VPN works at layer 2 data link of the OSI stack. This is very useful when we experience problem reaching hosts in the remote network. Very often this happens because hosts in the remote network have a bad gateway, for example, a default gateway different from the server itself, or if they have no gateway at all. It could also happen when hosts have security software like personal firewall blocking connection from other networks. The bridged mode solves these problems because all clients receive an IP address belonging to the green network. In this mode, there are also a few drawbacks. The first one is that you need to reserve an IP range for VPN clients in order to avoid conflicts with your green network. This IP range must be outside of the DHCP range of the remote subnet. Another drawback is that it is more difficult to identify VPN traffic because it is mixed with your LAN traffic. Additionally, the bridged mode is not supported by every operating system. For example, it won't work on iOS. The routing diagram in bridged mode is very simple because we have just one green role while physical and virtual interface are bridged together. The client takes an IP address from the green subnet and can talk with the green network through NetServer. In bridged mode, the green network interface must be of bridge type. So first you have to configure in the network menu, then you can configure the server section selecting bridged mode. The Road Warrior interface will change and you will be allowed to select the bridge and to define the IP range used by OpenVPN for its clients. Be careful to avoid overlapping APs in the green network. And now let's see a little of troubleshooting to ensure that everything is working correctly. The main test is to ping the green IP address of the firewall. If the ping is successful, it means that the tunnel is working correctly because we got through the firewall and we reached the green. It is very important to remember that pinging network hosts other than the firewall green IP address is not a valid test. Okay, so only the firewall green IP is a good test. If the connection is established successfully, you should have messages like this one on your log. You should search for the words peer connection initiated. After that, you will see all connection properties like public and private IP address of the client, DHCP options, and so on. You can also use TCP-dump to verify traffic is flowing correctly. Simply send a ping from your VPN client to a host in the green network, and you should see the traffic entering the tune RW interface, then exiting the physical interface. And you should then see the answer in the opposite direction.